Gone ahead and created a new Laravel application. I've already set up the database configuration here, and make sure you run npm I and npm run dev and keep this running in the terminal below, just so that it uses the hot reload, which makes it easier. So to get started with, let's go ahead and install Laravel Jetstream, which we're going to be using for Livewire. So I'm going to go ahead and just require Laravel Jetstream. If you haven't created a Laravel project already, you can just copy this command here and it will allow you to create your Laravel application. So I'm going to open up a new terminal and I'm going to require Jetstream. So outside of that, all we need to do is just install Jetstream like this. It will then go ahead and scaffold a lot of different configurations and routes in your views folder, and it will also go ahead and generate certain things such as the login and registration process. So for this welcome page, we don't really need that anymore, so we're going to go ahead and override that once it's done down here. Now it's important to note that you should only install Jetstream on new applications. Otherwise, you may end up with some issues when you're using it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to call this home for this route. And I may actually already now go ahead and create a home controller. So once we have done that, we will make sure that we can pass in all the relevant data there. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a home controller in a second. So going to comment that out and I'm going to make a controller called home controller, make it invocable, and I'm going to import this class. I'm going to name this route home. I am going to rename this route to home. I'm then going to go ahead and say return view home. And in here we want to just basically, let's just copy the terms page because that makes it easier. And then just get rid of everything in here except for the guest layout and just pass in home here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down. You can see we now have an error here, and this error is happening because we need to pass in the name here. So now we should get another error, which is because we don't have some issues with the sessions table here. So let's go ahead and see what's going on. So I'm going to go into the migrations folder. I'm going to make sure we have migrated everything. Just want to do one bit of change to the user table. I'm going to add a username and I'm going to make that unique. And outside of that, what we also want to have is a string for the banner image for the YouTube channel that can be nullable. And we also want a channel description here, which can also be nullable. And outside of that, let's go ahead and migrate this now. Now we will get an issue in here, such as we want to use the app layout. And this will give us an error. The reason for that error is because we are trying to get user details without checking first. So this is part of the Laravel default configuration, where they have a layout for people who are signed in and not signed in. We're going to make one single layout which uses this navigation menu. So I'm going to go into this navigation menu here, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything that has the auth username and the settings drop down is all with authentication required only. Gonna go ahead and make sure this is a bit nicer spaced out. And we now get an issue in the responsive links. So let's go ahead down here and make sure we don't have this issue anymore. So I'm just gonna check for the name field again. And in here, we just want to make sure that we close these down here. And we can actually get rid of the team management feature. We're not going to use that. So I'm going to just put this inside and off again. And outside of that, I just want to make sure that we also put this one in here and off. There we go. So that's now set up here. So we have the default navigation set up. So what we want to go ahead now is install MaryUI. So I'm going to be installing this manually. So let's go ahead and see what that requires. This require Livewire as well. And make sure we require MaryUI. I want to make sure that Livewire also using a new version. So I'm using version 3.3. So if you're experiencing any bugs of the like, make sure you are on the latest version of Livewire. And outside of that, I'm just going to go ahead and run this command, but for npm, because we're using npm in this instance, not yarn. And we also want to make sure inside our Tailwind configuration that we add in this bit here. So let's go down here and make sure we have Tailwind properly set up as well. We want to require Daisy UI, which is the UI MaryUI is based upon, along with the forms and typography. And let's try to run npm run dev now. Just check that the whole application is still working, which it is. Perfect. And outside of that, what we just want to make sure is that we have everything set up standard for Livewire, that we can go ahead and configure the layout a little bit. So we need to add in this toast here so we can create the relevant notifications for a user inside our layouts. So I'm going to add that just below the banner here. And I'm going to make sure we have that both login and the guest page. Outside of that, we don't really need to add any of these other configurations in except for the body class. So let's go ahead and add that in now. And the application still seems to be working. So outside of that, we don't need to set any other things up because we're going to be using a different sort of menu to achieve the likes of YouTube's design.